Good morning, friends from Five Reasons. Here we are back with bad news, right? Talking about the Marlins. You already know by this point in the morning that the game between the Miami Marlins and the Baltimore Orioles has been canceled for tonight. The same with the game that was gonna take place in Philadelphia with the Yankees against the Phillies. That's the latest news that we have so far. Early in the morning, Jeff Passan was reporting that at least 14 people in the Marlins clubhouse have tested positive for COVID-19. So that's a lot of people. That's very hard for the team to really handle, and we don't know how much time it's going to take for them to be back on the field if that happens at any point this season. Rob Manfred has the possibility to suspend or cancel the season if one or more teams have an outbreak like the one we're seeing now with the Marlins, and that's a possibility, a real possibility that's probably been discussed by some of the owners right now as we do this live. And we're waiting here for Ethan Skolnick. He's going to be joining us to talk a little bit about the situation going right now because there's a lot of people blaming the Marlins of what's going on, and I think they're not the only ones to blame. There's a lot of things going on not only in Miami but all around the country, and we want to wait on it. So we welcome Ethan Skolnick. Ethan, how are you? Good morning. What a way to start the week, right?
Yeah, I think we kind of sensed yesterday that we might have something like this, although that escalated quickly. It reminded me a little bit of what happened with the NBA as I try to get my camera right here, is what happened with the NBA where Rudy Gobert had one test and everything
Yeah.
shut down. Obviously, we've we've come. I would say we've come a long way since then, but we really haven't. I think people in this country have just basically given up trying to contain the virus, and we've seen that with the way that governments have abdicated responsibility and everything else that's happened. And I think what I want to talk about here, I mean, some of it is whether we have a season at all now, but I think the bigger issue is, look, MLB went into this hoping for the best.
Mhm.
And I think that, but that's all they did. I just don't think you can have anything meaningful occur here without a bubble. And I understand, and I saw our friend George Sedano tweeted this. I understood at first why the players, it was in a lot of ways, it was the players that did not want the bubble. The bubble was proposed. They
Yeah.
didn't want the bubble. They didn't want to be away from their family for an entire season. But once the season, because of greed on both sides, mostly the owner's side, got cut to 60 games and the season got kind of forced on the players, at that point, there should have been a plan in place to have a bubble because for 60 games, you could have done it. I mean, it's basically the same length of time as the NBA is going to be in a bubble now because the NBA season is supposed to end, I think, October 11th would be the last possible game 7 of the finals. It's basically the same time frame, just a couple weeks more. You could have put baseball players in a bubble. It's not like the NFL where you've got 53 and then 20 coaches on the staff. It's more than the NBA, but it certainly could have been handled. You could have also quarantined players separately if you needed to bring players up and had them work in a separate kind of minor league bubble. There are things that they could have done. They didn't do any of them. And so now we're in a situation where I'm going on Twitter and people are making fun of the Marlins. And I'm like, okay, what did the Marlins do? I mean, maybe we'll find out that they didn't follow any protocols. But, I mean, they're in a hot spot. They were traveling to another hot spot in Georgia, right?
Mhm.
Okay. And, could they have declined to play yesterday? Sure. But, I mean, all these positive tests, this thing incubates for up to 2 weeks. Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
I
this
think
could
that
have
should
been
have.
from 2 weeks ago.
I think that was not a call for the Marlins to make. It should have been a call from MLB. You know what? You already have
Right.
2, 3, 4 cases, positive cases. You should not play that game. That game yesterday at Philly should have not been played. That was that
I'm
was the
with
other
you.
place. Yeah.
No, Alejandro, I'm with you. But that affects. Okay, so that affects the Phillies, and I know the Phillies game against the Yankees has been shut down for tonight. That
Yeah.
affects that team. But as far as what happened with the Marlins, like this idea that the Marlins playing yesterday led to their outbreak, no, it didn't. Their outbreak
No.
has been incubating for.
Hmm.
But again, this is how this is the big problem, and this is a political discussion that we probably shouldn't waste too much time on here. We're 6 months into this thing, and people still don't understand how the virus spreads. They still don't understand you can be asymptomatic. They still, because their government has been, federal government in particular, and our Florida state government has basically been feeding into these myths about the virus instead of the truth about the virus, which I understand there's a low death rate. But in terms of the way it spreads from asymptomatic people. It spreads if you're not protected. And so, I still have people on Twitter saying, well, the Marlins probably spread it to a bunch more people yesterday. Yes, that's possible.
Maybe, yes.
But the 11 guys that have tested positive are not because of yesterday. They're because of what's happened over the past couple of weeks. And the plan always, in my view, to have players traveling around the country.
Yeah, that was a little risky.
Was very risky.
I would say, yeah.
It was very risky. And so I just don't want this. I know that the Marlins are going to get blamed because of their previous ownership and because they were, a comedy of errors. But I just don't think it's fair in this case. I mean, unless we find out they violated every protocol, this was inevitable. The Marlins just happened to be that team. And I guess, Alejandro, the question becomes now, how do you continue this thing? I mean, let's start this on the micro level and go to the macro level.
Yeah, because right now the first decision is it's okay, and we understand that the Marlins are still in Philly waiting for more results. So tonight's game is canceled. Too bad, because we were going to be there to watch Marlins Park empty again, but now with the reason to watch the first place Marlins, right? So that's fine. They're going to cancel this game, probably this series. That will be healthy. That's fine. But now what? What are they going to do with the Marlins? Are they going to keep the Marlins from playing for like 2 weeks and then see who's not positive and then let them play the rest of the season, maybe playing double headers? Or are they gonna? What are they gonna do now?
Well, from a scheduling perspective, it's a mess, right? So I mean, there's two.
They don't have time.
They don't have time. There's two things you need to consider here. There's fairness and there's scheduling. Okay, from a fairness perspective, they have to wait because you can't. It's one thing to have 2 or 3 guys out, and that's a conversation we've had on the NBA side. What happens if LeBron James tests positive? What happens if Giannis tests positive? But it's one thing to have, a couple guys. But if you literally have half the roster, okay, to say, okay, we're just going to call up everybody from Jupiter, is simply it's just not fair. Now, I know we can say this is a strange season. It was going to have an asterisk anyway. There are other players who've opted out. Who just,
I mean, that was the deal. That's why they have a 60-man roster, right? In case, I mean, I'm obviously imagine they couldn't think something like this was going to happen 3 days into the season. Like 14 guys in a clubhouse already have tested positive. That was probably the worst nightmare for Rob Manfred, but it's going on right now. So, I mean, they have a lot of players in Jupiter playing right now, they're supposed to be healthy. So I guess that's a way they can go around and trying to keep the season going, because it's very risky to cancel the entire season for the other 26 teams that are not involved. I'm counting the Orioles that are here in Miami, the Phillies that play the Marlins yesterday, and the Yankees that are supposed to be there in that clubhouse in the next couple of days. So they have to really think about what's going to take into their decision to even cancel the season, suspend just the Marlins, or see what they're going to do now.
Well, look, I mean, MLS, and I know you're more familiar with this than me. I mean, they did have a bubble, but they had 2 teams who had a bunch of positive tests. They didn't let them in.
Out.
They kicked them out. They didn't let them in the bubble, and they just said that's what happens. Yeah. Now, but then again, we get to this scheduling issue here. So get beyond fairness, okay, and get to scheduling, and then it becomes how exactly do you execute this? If you do suspend the Marlins for, say, 2 weeks and let everybody get clean, and then you don't even know they're going to all come back negative. And then here's the other thing. Tim Reynolds, reporter from the Associated Press, and I had heard something like this. Remember I kept saying I thought Bam and Nunn were going to, Kendrick Nunn and Bam Adebayo were going to be back in the bubble by a certain date. Yeah. Well, I had heard that Bam Adebayo was going to be back by that weekend, by Saturday or Sunday. He ended up coming back the following Tuesday. And the reason for that, I found out later, because I was like, well, I keep getting this information. They're both going to be in the bubble. The reason was because they kept false positive on their tests. They were testing negative on the first one, and on the second one testing positive. Testing is still such a mess, even with these leagues that are getting the best testing, that we may have a situation where in 2 weeks there are some Marlins players who false positive, and then what? Then you're stuck. And so again, getting back to the scheduling, I mean, do you play double headers? I guess. I mean, you don't want to create more travel for players at this point. I think that, look, I understand completely why they tried to come back. I also, think that everything they did to lead it down to 60 games was, a combination of really terrible leadership from the commissioner, and then one of the more powerful unions in our country that basically pushed back on everything. And I'm
Yeah.
usually a players guy, but I think in some of these cases, they should have bent a little bit more, a little bit earlier, and at least gotten in 80 something games. Okay, but here we are. You've got 60 games. I think we're going to find out in the next couple of days that other teams test positive, not because they were in contact with the Marlins, but just because where we are as a country.
Yeah.
And so I think when that happens, I have a feeling Manfred's hand is going to be forced here. I don't know what you do. And I guess the next issue becomes, and this is of greater importance, to most of our audience, NBA is going to be fine, I think, as long as nobody else sneaks out for wings at a strip club. And I think MLS is going to be fine, at least until they get out of the bubble. And I think NHL is going to be fine because as much as I'm not a Gary Bettman fan, the plan to send everybody to Canada in 2 different sites made sense. Get them out of this country to a country that's handling it better and is more sparsely populated. Okay. But as far as the NFL, okay.
Yeah, they should take this into consideration, right? Because they're not planning on a bubble right now.
No, and there are unique problems for a bubble for the NFL, which is, like I mentioned, I mean, you're dealing with, even they cut the training camp rosters from 90 down to 80, okay? But you're still going to have 50 plus guys on the team. You can't do what the NBA did, which was limit the total number, I think, to 35 to 37, because you don't need that many coaches. You don't need that many trainers. In the NFL, the coaching staffs are 18 to 20 people.
They're just
and
too
that
many.
doesn't include the entire training staff. And if you're going to cut back on training staff in the NFL, you're asking for more trouble, right? Yeah. So you're talking about having to put 90 people in a bubble on 30 teams, okay? 32 teams. You're talking about, roughly 3,000 people plus support staff for the league. And it's really difficult. And then where do you do it? Now, I know there's been some suggestions that they could have done it in Orlando also. They could have used some of the fields that MLS used. You could use Camping World Stadium. There's some stadiums that you can use there. Disney certainly has the space. The NBA will be vacating most of its people. MLS will be gone, right? I mean, you could look at that, but then again, you're going deep into the heart of a hot spot again. And do you trust, I guess the question becomes, do you trust the NFL with its track record of not caring about its players, right, to create a bubble like the NBA has or like Don Garber has in MLS? I just don't buy it. This is a bad morning for Roger Goodell. I think that this is it's the worst morning for Rob Manfred.
Yeah,
but
we'll see we'll see which plan they have in place, right? Because now it's the time to show, okay, this is a plan that we have in case this happened, and we still haven't heard anything from MLB. I guess.
Do you think they have one? Do you think they have one?
I hope they have one, because if they spent a month or two just fighting each other, I hope they reach some sort of agreement if something like this happened, right?
Do you think? Well, let me ask this question. Do you think we saw some? Look, the obviously the social justice stuff is not as big an issue in MLB because it's a different population. Obviously, yeah. I mean that's one of the problems with MLB is that basically the black community has spurned MLB in a lot of different ways. So you don't. It's not as much of an issue, and that was an issue with NBA. But COVID is still an issue, and there were still players that opted out because of COVID. Okay, I mentioned Posey and some others. Do you think now that we're going to see some players on some of these teams who just, they're getting pressure, I'm sure, from their families who are said, look, this thing is too dangerous. Come home. Give up. We're not talking about that much salary anyway, because we were talking about less than half of the season. Yeah. Your team's out of it early. Come home.
Yeah. It's probably going to happen. We saw the Phillies yesterday. They were wearing masks, even hitting or running the bases because they were scared already. And it's hard for, especially if you're in those special conditions that what they talked about, they should probably rethink about playing this season because it's really dangerous. And the thing that you were talking about and mentioning about the testing, is not, it hasn't been as sharp as we need, or as they need in order to control this thing, right? Because I just don't understand how you let them play after less than 24 hours. They were in touch with somebody that had just tested positive, and it's just, that's just the way, just the easy way for them to let the virus spread even easier. And it's just, I don't know, that's why I'm still
Alejandro, it
waiting for
wasn't.
a plan for them to say,
Wait.
hey, let's
Mhm.
let's pause it here, and let's restructure this to see if we can take this season somewhere and not have to cancel it 2 weeks into the season.
But you made a good point here. This is that they're just pressed on time, right?
Yeah. And
So I mean,
that's the other thing, because they have to finish this by October. And
right.
then even Anthony Fauci is saying, hey, you guys shouldn't be playing in October out there. So trying to finish that as quick as possible. And even with that recommendation, they expanded the playoffs to 16 teams. So
Well,
I don't know how
I didn't
more their plan's
understand,
going to be.
but that's the thing. Every one of their plans has been about draining as much money out of this as possible. I didn't understand that at all. Why would you be? Look, I like it from having baseball on TV. I mean, look, we are entering this weird thing where everybody's scared, but it's like this. It's a sports hot zone where literally, I mean, you're going to have 6 things on your television at all times, okay,
Yeah.
for 2-3 months. It's great. The ratings, I mean, WNBA ratings were their highest they've been in years.
Yeah.
Nobody is not watching because of the social justice stuff, so everybody shut up about that.
Yeah.
WNBA ratings were the highest they've been. The NFL ratings will be outrageous, okay, if they actually play. The first game between the Yankees and the Nationals was a highest rating. Hello, Manny. Was the highest rating they've had for an opener in 6 years, I think, on ESPN. So all of these ratings, I mean, they're going to be huge. But so I understand it's a money grab. I get it. But if you're MLB, like with everything that you're dealing with, you're adding more teams to the mix for the postseason right now. Manny, I know. Look, let's let you get in on this a little bit, because I mean, we're wondering, did MLB have a backup plan for this? Because we knew this was going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, like when you kind of look at the whole thing, we're still waiting on a response from them. Like you have all these writers
Right.
just talking to them and just tweeting out what they're saying, but like this is not the way that it's supposed to be, guys. I mean, we love sports. We love like we've been wanting this since this whole thing happened in March. And I'm hearing that the Marlins and the Braves had a couple positive tests a week before. And then now all of a sudden the Marlins come out with more positive tests. I'm like, what are the Phillies thinking? Like, okay, we just played this team over the weekend. Like, what are the Yankees now thinking when they went to Philly last night? Like, do we really want to play this anymore? And it's sad because it could have been controlled. There's so many other things. Listen, I understand the players, they didn't want to have in that controlled environment. Listen, I don't make millions of dollars. I don't have, 3-4 kids and whatever. And of course, every player has their own way of thinking on why they did that. But this is, once again, Adam Silver is just sitting there like smiling, and like this is what they wanted to not, for them not to happen. Lou Williams does something stupid. Guess what, buddy? You're gone for 10 days, which I think is kind of light. But you're gone. MLB, Alejandro, I'm with you. I don't think they might have a plan, but I don't think they want to come out and say it, because the plan that's going to come out to be revealed, it's totally stupid.
Right.
It is what it is.
Right. Well, it's stupid, but the plan B may just be to shut it down. And I think
facts. Yes, I totally agree.
And the other thing is too, I mean, take into consideration which teams are involved now. Once the Yankees started to get brought into this,
no.
Right.
We don't need Giancarlo or Garrett Cole getting sick.
Right. I mean, that's a totally different situation, and you're also moving this thing now into media markets that will care more. I mean, the reality is, I mean, as much as we're trying to build our Marlins coverage, down here, it's like it doesn't make a sound, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of people in this market who didn't even know the Marlins were opening at home today. They didn't even know the Marlins were playing, okay?
And they're playing Baltimore too, so that
and
doesn't
they're playing
help.
Baltimore. But you start talking about a Yankees-Phillies series?
Yeah.
It's a different
Joe
conversation.
Girardi,
yeah. So
Okay.
let me ask you this question.
WIP, WFAN. Yeah, that's
should
a little bit different.
Should MLB continue the season without the Marlins? Just take them out.
Oh,
I don't know. How do you even do
this
that,
is
though?
so the Marlins, though, right? Like they win the series, there's all high hopes, and then it happens. Oh
Well,
my
they can
god!
raise a banner for this. That's fine. That's all right. That's all right.
It's
I
a
mean,
positive
Five reasons
season. They were
at
over 500.
at 5 Reasons Sports, baby, 59-1. It was gonna
59
happen.
and 1. 59 and 1. Yeah, you know, I'm going to tweet that out as soon as we get done with this. But here's the thing about it. How do you even do that? They're just forfeiting. I mean,
No, they
they
just
for
well, the way they did it in MLS, they just that game just didn't count, so it just doesn't go in the
Well, guys,
standings.
also remember the full team of Dallas, or somewhat half of them, tested positive. So then there was something where they said we're not playing, and I believe there was another team as well
In
that
Nashville.
started Nashville that started testing positive. The MLS, in a sense, I'm thinking we're like, oh, no offense, that sucks, but this still helps us move forward. We'll take out two teams, we'll put the other team into the other slot that Dallas left, so that balanced out everything.
Yeah.
I don't think Major League Baseball, especially the way they did the whole thing with East and West, they can do that.
no, they
I just
can't.
don't think that,
They can't.
because
They
the
can't.
Marlins are affecting every other team that's on the
Yes.
schedule. So you
Yes.
take out the Marlins, what's everybody else going to be doing? Okay,
Well,
so that's
but
easy
that's the
wins.
thing
I don't
though.
think that's possible.
Since they're all in the East, they're just facing East teams. So that's a
Mhm.
positive thing, because the other way around, when you're facing everybody from the center, from the West, that gives you a different feeling, because sometimes you play more teams from this division or that division. So that will be. I think that there's a way to do it, even though the correct thing they should do, in my opinion, is just wait a couple of weeks, test everybody again, see who's positive, see who's not, and then bring whoever's in Jupiter and trying to finish the season that way.
See, I think the more likely scenario is I think they're going to tell them. I think, look, if they don't decide to just cancel it, I think the more likely scenario is they're going to tell the Marlins to bring guys up from Jupiter now, because again, you're creating these schedule issues. They're not. I mean, again, it's a little different from the MLS thing, because they just said don't come to the bubble, right? But here, if you're going to actually have these games in the schedule, so what? You've got the Braves taking 3 days off when they were supposed to play the Marlins. I mean, the whole rhythm of the schedule, pitching rotations, is totally thrown off. It was going to be thrown off anyway.
Now,
but then
should
you
the
had the players
Marlins be in a
adjust to that.
bubble now? Should the Marlins be in a bubble? Like
I think it's too late for that, though, right?
But I mean, after this,
It's guys. Well, you know what? Before we answer that question, I am a pure believer that if this was the Yankees, the Dodgers, any of those high-profile teams, pretty sure the season would have been over. And this is the sad part. MLB is just saying, you know what? Let's just not say anything. Let's figure what to do. Let's still collect some money.
Who are the Marlins?
Yeah,
Who are the
Miami Marlins. I mean, who cares about the Marlins? Their fans don't even know about that there was opening game for them in Miami today.
Right.
That's the sad part. Should they be in the bubble? Listen, if there's an opportunity, I think so. But I don't know how much that helps.
I think they put them in the Nick Saban Memorial Bubble in Davie, the one at the Dolphins facility. But look, I mean, the MLB is not alone in this. I mean, if you look at, look, if LeBron James contracted coronavirus before they went in the bubble, they might have canceled the season. It's and look, the NBA is basically going to force Memphis to play with 3 players the rest of the season just so Zion can make the postseason. I mean, they're not the only league that's about money. The difference is the NBA actually went into this, and by the way, the NFL not exempt from this, by the way. But the NBA is the one league, and I think the NHL did to a degree, that actually went into this and said, look, this is serious. We're not going to start unless we're sure we can finish. That's the way that Adam Silver approached it. Okay. And that pissed some people off, because there were a lot of different plans that were going out there. And then all of a sudden you had everything with social justice, and everything got derailed for a little bit. And I heard the NBA was sort of reconsidering. But with everything, they were very deliberate. They worked with their players, because he is the best commissioner in sports. You have a situation now with and again, it's easier for the NBA because they got fewer players. It's easier for them to control. They got smaller staffs. But MLB went into this just basically saying, look, okay, fine. Okay, 60 games. We're going to force that on you. We're going to start. We're going to travel. We'll just contain it to the East, but we'll be fine. You can't do it that way. And look, in this country, the NFL means more now. And I just don't know how the NFL is going to play a full contact sport with travel, with
double players,
with double
players, triple
double
players.
MLB. I mean, quadruple NBA, right?
Staff, everything. Yeah.
I just don't. And college football, forget it. I just forget it. Like,
listen, there's 90 players on a collegiate roster in college football. I'm sorry. Like, if one guy gets it, The entire defense could have it. One guy goes into the offensive room
The
by
entire
mistake and touches
university can
something.
have it.
The entire
Right.
university in the
Right.
football division is going to get it. But one thing,
Right.
guys, let's remember about the MLB. I truly believe they could have had more time to discuss all this stuff. Instead, they were worrying about negotiations that took so
Right.
damn long.
Right.
And now you try to rush everything, and this is what happens. This is a result. And it sucks because for the true Marlins fans out there, like Alejandro, I know a lot of people down here that listen, it is what it is. The team is not popular anywhere else except for certain people. This sucks and it hurts. But at the same time, even Alejandro could sit here today and look at you and say, they need to just stop for now because we don't want these guys to get affected later on. This is not right.
Well,
Point blank.
you saw what happened with Boston pitcher, and I think
Yeah,
that
Eduardo Rodriguez. Yeah.
and
Rodriguez,
to me that didn't get enough attention. That is because I think the one thing that has not happened yet, and when that happens, it does change the conversation. We've not seen an athlete get seriously sick. Okay, and I understand.
Well, we haven't seen an athlete die.
Yeah.
We haven't
And
seen an
that's the
athlete
sad
die.
part. Yeah,
but a
that's
lot
the
of
sad
these,
part.
a lot of these guys, they show up and they say, "I had cold symptoms." Okay, if they had any symptoms at all, and that is just not going to get people's attention. And I understand that these guys are in better condition, and probably the virus is not going to affect them the way that it affects others. But also, the phrase that was used by Adam Silver was they're super spreaders because they're not affected by it. They don't feel it. They may be asymptomatic, and so they're actually more dangerous to others than the general population is, in the same way as I decide whether to send my child to school, in the same way that children are more dangerous, okay, to the general population because you're not going to know that they're sick. And I just so let's end it here.
Yeah, because I have to go.
You have to go. Let's end it here. This actual episode has gone longer than the Marlins season did, so we extended on it.
We actually went 60-0 today.
That's quick. It's right. Quick predictions. Quick predictions. Are the Marlins going to play in the next 2 weeks, Alejandro?
No, they shouldn't play in the next 2 weeks. No.
Will
No,
they?
that wasn't
didn't
a
ask-
question.
that wasn't a
It
question.
wasn't they shouldn't. It wasn't they shouldn't.
They probably are. Yes.
You think so, Manny?
No.
Okay.
I don't
Ethan?
think so either. Do they
Okay.
play at all? Do they? I don't think they do. Do they play at all this season?
Yeah, I mean that's why they build the 60-man roster for this type of situation. So I
So
think,
you mean
yeah,
to tell
they
me that the
change.
Miami Marlins are not going to become Miami Jupiters? Got it. Appreciate
Well,
that.
Well,
That's-
there are some Marlins fans who would prefer to see some of the guys in Jupiter actually. So that's
Yeah,
you're gonna get an early look.
It's
right?
the team's not gonna be that much of a worse team. It's gonna stay about the same.
And
So
look,
it's not going to be
Mon-
a 500 record anymore, huh? It's going to be maybe
Well, it
10
could be a
and-
couple of games under that. But
and Monte Harrison, what they have Wednesday that they get the year of service that they additional year.
Mhm.
So they can free Monte on Wednesday. So I mean, as
Yeah.
long as they wait until Wednesday, they can come back.
hopefully they can play the rest of the season. Hopefully, we'll see what goes on.
All right. Well, the NBA is playing, so follow 5 on the floor. Have a good one.
See you tomorrow. We're doing a live during the NBA game, during the Miami Heat game too. We'll see what we're gonna do with that game since I don't know so many bad news on Monday. Let's give some hope for people on Tuesday. That sounds good.
The Heat is all we got. All right. Have a good one, guys.
All right, have a good one.